Okay, so my name is Morgan Marshall. My chapter was chapter 11, career planning, and the pages I did was from 329 to 335. So first we have Anne Rowe's theory. She came up with this theory in 1957. Anne Rowe said that the way that people look for careers is based off of what they either had or didn't have in their childhood. So she said that the environment of a childhood, the environmental climate is broken down into three sections. So that would be emotional concentration of the child, avoidance, and acceptance of the child. So for emotional concentration, she divided those into two categories, overprotecting and overdemanding. So for overprotecting, it does not encourage independence, definitely encourages dependence. And then for the overdemanding, usually the parents set, really high expectations. They have very rigid rules and encourage conformity. So then for the avoidance of the child, that's a spectrum that can go from rejecting to neglecting. So for rejecting, the parents are they are cold. They are not that interested in the child. They might even be resentful. They just have a really indifferent attitude. But for the neglecting, that's less hostile than the rejecting, but it just really provides the bare minimum physical care. And they definitely don't get any attention or affection from that one. And then for the acceptance, so she said these are two: casual acceptance or loving. So loving acceptance is obviously when the parent is warm, supportive, encouraging, gives praise, and is there for the child in an appropriate way. And then casual is, they're there for them, they care about them, they're also warm and affectionate, but if they have something else going on that's going to preoccupy them, they're going to do that. um, it's just very mild the way they interact. So in the pictures on the top, I tried to illustrate a loving acceptance where they're having quality time, they're laughing, having fun. And then on the bottom is casual acceptance. So, the child's not neglected and she's, not really being rejected. She looks well taken care of, but the mom is just very preoccupied with work or whatever she's doing and doesn't really have time for the kid. So what does that mean? All six of these either head into major vocational orientation toward person or away from persons. So that means, are these groups of people from these childhoods, are they going to look for careers that are based around public and the general public working with people? Or are they going to look for vocations that are kind of on their own, doing their own thing, where they don't have much interaction with other people? So she says that loving, overprotecting, and overdemanding are going to go for positions that work with people. And casual rejecting and neglecting are going to go for orientations that, work alone, do their own thing. And she said that these are because they're either trying to duplicate or compensate for what they had or didn't have in their childhood when they were growing up. Because it's all based off of a need for satisfaction. And so you're just trying to get satisfaction from your career choice. That's her theory. So John Crumbles, he has a little bit of a different theory. He came up with this in 1978. He says that the way that you pick a career is broken down into four sections. So he says genetic endowment, environmental factors, task approach skills, and previous learned experiences. So for genetic, that's obviously going to be race, gender, physical characteristics, anything to that effect. Environmental is going to be like where the social climate that you grew up in, what kind of resources your family has, your socioeconomic status of you growing up, new technology developments, things like that, things that are happening around you. Task approach skills is going to be your own work habits. So how you take to a task, how you approach it, your performance standards, and your own individual unique perceptions. And then for previous learned experiences, that's going to be based off of, in behavioral terms, it would be conditioned stimuli and reinforcers. And these are going to be how the person shapes their attitude towards different professions. And reinforcements can come from parents as well and family members. So in the photo, I tried to illustrate, oh, can't see. In the photo, I tried to illustrate, it's a kind of a generational thing we have going on here. Grandpa, dad, and a son, they're all playing guitar, playing music. So, this could involve all three. It could be genetic endowment. He's predisposed to you know, being a good musician. Environmental factors, obviously his parents, you know, have money for him to have guitar lessons and teach him and buy guitars for him. Task approach skills, he obviously sees it as a positive thing and he's going to want to do it because his family is doing it and they're encouraging of it. And again, the learned experiences, his family is obviously reinforcing it, and they're conditioning him to, you know, learn that music and guitar practice and playing guitar is a fun and exciting thing. So basically, John Kerbold says that it can be broken down into three different things, three different categories of how to teach things that you need to teach people when you're being a career counselor. So one, to learn a logical sequence of career decision-making skills. Two, arrange a series of exploration experiences. And three, for them to teach them how to make choices about the consequences of what they have learned moving forward. Okay, so Linda Gottfredson, so she came up with this theory in 2002. And so for her theory, there's three different major differences that set her apart from other developmental theorists. So one, she believes that decision-making begins as early as age 3, and that basically childhood and adolescence are going to be the key phases in exploring your options for careers and kind of figuring out what you like and what works for you. Two, that the role of the social self concept is very, very important. And so basically that is going to be like, how do you see yourself in terms of your gender and your social class? And, you know, what careers do you feel are attainable to you and something that's realistic? And then for 3, the process of rejecting possibilities. So she believes that it's not just picking a career and just picking a bunch that you like and going from there. She says it's actually rejecting. So you continue to reject things that are not going to be a match for you and keep narrowing down the choice until you find the career that is going to be a match for you. She said this happens in, you know, childhood all the way in adolescence and young adulthood. So in the images, I put a girl in the front or on the top making blocks. She looks like she's not really having a great time. So she's probably finding out early, you know, very early on that this is not something she really enjoys. And so she's probably not going to keep, you know, playing with, you know, building things and designing and things like that. And then the kid on the bottom, he is at a soccer game, but he's not playing. So, you know, for whatever reason, he doesn't like it or he's not that good. So he tried soccer and now he's, you know, rejecting that and realizing that's not a viable choice for him. So going on continued over here, she breaks it down into 4 different stages. And she calls these stages circumscription. So circumscription is basically when it's, you know, the child is narrowing down what they want. So it's kind of like that rejecting thing we were just talking about. They're narrowing down what, you know, and knocking things off the list that are not working for them or they don't like. So for number 1, orientation to size and power. So this is when kids are realizing, you know, that adults are big, they're little, they're starting to look at things in dichotomous terms, and they're starting to get rid of the fantasy goals that they had, you know, Spider-Man, Batman, etc., and they're implementing real occupations. So that's why I put this kid in a firefighter's uniform because that is a real occupation. Then number 2, orientation to sex roles. This is ages 6 to 8. So this is when they start to really understand sex stereotyping and choose careers that are, or dress up as things that are compatible with their gender, you know, perceived. So I also put the kid in the firefighter because that is predominantly a male occupation. And so it's, you know, he's more likely to dress up as that, as like, you know, a ballerina or something, because peer influence is also very big during this stage and very important. And so his peers either accepting him or rejecting him is going to have an effect on what careers and what he, you know, he shows interest in. Then we have orientation to social evaluation. That's 9 to 13. So this is when they start understanding more of, you know, class issues, social issues, you know, which occupations are associated with status or not. And the elimination continues at this time. So, you know, potentially you're going to have him dress up as a firefighter, kids dressing up as surgeons, doctors. You know, you're not going to see a lot of people playing dress up on Halloween or whatever as postal workers or garbage men or janitors. These occupations are all still very valuable, but in, you know, generally speaking, they're not perceived in our society as prestige. And so, kids don't typically want to dress up as that. Well, that's my timer. And then for orientation to the self, 14 plus, this is when compromise really comes into play and replaces circumscription. So not only are they still going to be kind of narrowing down, but at this time they're really implementing their sense of self and their self identity and their skills, what they are good at. And so they'll start to compromise. Maybe they really want to be a dancer, but they ultimately realize they don't have much rhythm and they can't do that. So they compromise and they move on to something else. And then for postmodern theories, so we have constructionist, and narrative theories. Theorists. So for constructivist, that's going to be this baby right here on the left-hand side. So basically that's when you're making sense of the reality around you. And then for constructionist, those theorists believe that you are making sense of the reality through your actions. So basically that meanings are created through your interactions, primarily language, in social context, and the way in which we live. And then for narrative theories, those theorists kind of believe that, we writing our own story, basically our life is like the plot to our own novel, and that each new stage is kind of just a new chapter, and it's up to us to, kind of decide what happens next. And then basically they have Campbell and Unger came up with 4 different goals or ways that a counselor can guide. I think these are very important ways that a counselor can guide a client into discovering what they want. And so it's a huge factor, in my opinion, is just that they don't even know what they want. So first, they to just explore their dominant storylines and their preferred future. Dominant storyline is like their childhood and how they grew up, and preferred future is for basically, you want to say preferred because it's not set in stone. Tons of things could happen. So that's when you want to use the word preferred so that they could be flexible. To develop flexible goals that reflect positive uncertainty. So for this one, there's never just one way to achieve a life goal. So you want the client to remain flexible and optimistic. There might be detours along the way, which is something that you definitely want to have them keep in mind. Explore ways of integrating multiple and conflicting discourses. So for instance, in this one, your parent or your peer or someone close to you might not approve with the career that you want. And they might not think that it is prestigious enough. Maybe they want you to be a doctor, but you really want to be an artist. And so you have to have the client explore different ways to integrate that and different ways to go about that, because they might have pushback from, other people in their life. And then 4, to develop a contingency plan of the alternative paths available for reaching preferred futures. So for this one, it says they might need to take a variety of paths to reach their preferred futures. And the counselor should help them develop backup plans for obstacles and other ways of pursuing their vocational hopes. So this one essentially means that, maybe someone wants to be a veterinarian or something to that effect, but something happens in their life and that's not possible anymore. Well, as a counselor, you want to ask them, why did they want to, what were they looking for? What were they trying to achieve by pursuing that occupation? And there might be another occupation that could still satisfy that emotion and that need, that's just not that particular one. So you need to have backup plans and alternative plans because, again, preferred future, it's not set in stone. Tons of things can happen along the way in your journey that might prevent you from that, but there might still be ways of getting that feeling that you're looking for. So just to wrap it up, a lot of postmodern, what they have in common is their approaches share the same sentiment that all these meanings are fluid and can be interpreted in different ways. The ultimate goal is to have the clients explore the meanings that they give to their careers, as well as how do they define their own interests. So basically, they just want them to, like I was saying before, explore, like, what are you looking for out of that job? Why do you want that position? What are the reasons behind it? And then also just in general, the commonality between all of these is that humans are the agents of their own life and responsible for converting intention into action. So the counselor cannot do it for you. They can give you the tools necessary and help guide you, but it's ultimately up to the client to make those decisions for themselves and make their dreams a reality. I apologize, I went over time, sorry. How do I stop?